Hey everybody, welcome back to the Clinical Trials Guru.com. Again, it's the Clinical Trials Guru.com. Thank you very much for your questions. Grab a seat, get comfortable, alright? If you're standing up, you can stand up as long as you're comfortable. I'm doing a long video, alright? So I do like a 1-hour webinar every month. And by the way, the next one is going to be Tuesday, July 28th from 3 to 4 Pacific time. That's 6 to 7 Eastern Time, Tuesday, July 28th. For those of you who are on my email list at the Clinical Trials Guru, you'll get an email Monday reminding you about the webinar with the link. Those webinars are also recorded, so they'll be available for YouTube or on YouTube immediately after they're recorded. All right? So if you miss it live, you can still find it on YouTube. And I like doing at least 2 of these long form videos, so one webinar and then one like 30 to 40 minute video every month, because I've been doing a good job of building the YouTube channel, and I've been doing a good job of building my email list. Actually, like, I've been amazed by the amount of subscribers I get every day, right? But I haven't done a very good job of promoting my iTunes podcast, which is free. Just go to iTunes and look at the Clinical Trials Guru, or Stitcher, which is, I actually don't like iTunes, but I realize a lot of you do, so I have my podcast available on iTunes. But I use Stitcher. When I listen to podcasts, I listen to them through Stitcher, so I'm also on Stitcher, and it's free, the Clinical Trials Guru. And I know some of you guys, you don't want to be watching videos all the time. It drains your battery. You may want to listen to me in the car or at the gym in your headphones. However you're consuming it, I don't care, as long as you're doing it, then I'm doing my job. So, yeah, this is going to be one of those long ones, right? And I've been getting so many questions, I batch them, so I try to get back to like all of them in individual videos, but I can't possibly do that, so every month I get behind, and then I batch the rest and make one long video like this. So grab a seat, get comfy, enjoy, and hopefully it inspires you to comment or to send me questions. Dan at theclinicaltrialsguru.com or 949-415-6256. Call or text. I got Apple Watch. I can reply back instantly. 949-415-6256. Also Instagram and Snapchat. I love them. My username is Dan Sfera, just like my name. On Instagram and Snapchat. Those are my 2 favorite social networks right now. Alright? Find me there. So let's get right into it. The first question is kind of like a question / comment that one of my viewers sent me, and it's regarding HIPAA. And so for those of you who don't know, there's a pretty detailed blog post on Intralink's Collaborista blog. And Intralinks, if you don't know, full disclosure, they're a sponsor of this program. So on their Collaborista blog, there's a story about a hospital in Boston that was recently fined $218,000, or some ridiculous amount of money, for storing patient confidential information in Google Drive. And I know a lot of you smaller sites out there watching, and this hospital wasn't a research hospital, at least that I know of. It's just a regular hospital. I mean, they may have had a research department. That's not the point of the story. The point of the story is they were using Google Drive to store patient confidential information, which is a no-no. They got audited by some agency, and this was a finding, and they got fined. So no Google Drive. Okay, Google Drive is bad. Prior to Intralink's VIA, because that's a brand new cloud service that just came out late 2014, and I've been using it since. Again, full disclosure, they're a sponsor, but they're a sponsor because it's an awesome product. Prior to VIA, I was using Google Drive for all my sites. The thing is, we wouldn't have gotten fined because we were de-identifying all our patient info. So instead of having a patient in Google Drive called Dan Sfera, we would have a patient called D-S. Then I would have the phone number, address. Still couldn't put social, but you don't really need social security number in a clinical research study. Well, actually, that's debatable too, but I'm not going to get into that. So we would have to go out of our way to de-identify the information, right? On top of that, it wasn't very easy to share that info with everyone in our group, and also you didn't know who last accessed the document, at least that I'm aware of. So it posed a lot of problems. And the solution now is to use Intralinks Via or anything like it. Virtual workspace, it's HIPAA compliant. There is absolutely no reason why you should get fined if you use Intralinks Via. In fact, one of the purposes, in addition to collaborating on remote monitoring and study startup activities with CRAs, CROs, sponsors, and your team, is to put patient information there, right? Source documents, patient contact info, have your patient contact information backed up in the cloud. In case anything happens to the physical file, you still have a copy of it in a secured, HIPAA compliant, FDA, CFR Part 11 compliant virtual workspace. All right, so don't use Google Drive unless you're very careful about de-identifying the information. And I know it's free, and I love bootstrapping, but it could be more hassle and more problematic than you would like, right? So give Intralinks Via a try. So that's one thing I wanted to talk about. The other one, I got a question from another viewer, and they said, "Hey Dan, have you ever dealt with a CRO filing Chapter 7 bankruptcy during a study? I have some of my sites who are doing a study, and the invoices for startup and advertising were submitted a month ago, and I just received notice that the CRO filed Chapter 7. The sponsor is taking over, and I have been in communication with them about our sites and patients who are enrolled and patients who are scheduled to enroll. My question to you is, do we have to wait until the assets are liquidated and the trustee pays out creditors, or should the sponsor pay us? In all of my years doing research, I have never come across this." So the sponsor is responsible for paying you, all right? They chose the CRO. The CRO is insolvent now. The sponsor still has the responsibility. It's their study. They're called the sponsor for a reason. So I'm assuming, and probably 90% of the time, the sponsor would get involved and take over payments to the sites. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be smooth and seamless and just without any problems, because it is. Because sponsors, especially if they use the CRO, because they probably don't have those systems in place to efficiently and effectively handle payments to sites, amongst a whole bunch of other things. But I know payments are the most important concern for you at this moment. So definitely it's the sponsor. The contract is between, check the contract. I'm pretty sure it's between the sponsor and you, and not the CRO and you, although the CRO might be a party in the contract. To be on the safe side, I would call the sponsor, call the project manager, call the medical director, call somebody from the sponsor, voice your concerns, and if they do anything to indicate that they may not be able to pay you until court is done with the CRO and all that nonsense, then you tell them you're not going to get any of your data, and we're not going to enroll any more patients, and all the patients we do have are going to be withdrawn. Although, don't go that route first unless they tell you that they're not going to pay you, which I would be livid as a research site owner myself. So I can't blame you if you go off on them. But that's probably not going to be the case. I've never been through this in the past. So this is just my best guess, or an educated guess, I would say, because I do know how sponsors, sponsors really do care about the sites. Sponsors are concerned about the sites. At the end of the day, sponsors just want their data from the trials, right? And they want good data, and they want clean data. And if one of their CROs went bankrupt, they still have their study, and they still have their data. And who knows, they might appoint another CRO to take over, and they'll just handle payments in the interim. But I wouldn't be too concerned about it, but I would definitely call a sponsor. All right? So actually, let me know how that goes. I would appreciate if you can follow up with me on that one. I'd be curious. Another one. Okay, not that one. That one's going to be an interesting project actually, but I can't talk about it yet. Lots of announcements coming up, so you definitely want to sign up to the email list on the Clinical Trials Guru, okay? Lots of exciting stuff. Here's one. I've been working as a study coordinator for 5 years and I'm ready to make the next move. I want to work as a CRA and I have been working closely with CRAs during this time. I am confident enough of my skill set. I got some interviews from CRO companies, but it seems like they need people with previous site monitoring experience. Though I didn't personally monitor a site, I know exactly how to do it at an experienced CRA level. My question is, what should I do in the meantime for success in my interview? How to prepare for it? So, I've done a video on this before. You need to have an adaptive CV. And that's a term I coined, although it's definitely not a concept that I came up with. So sponsors have adaptive trials all the time, right? They have a protocol and they're flexible with it. So as the study progresses, they know where they can change the protocol to maybe make the study more efficient, run smoother, right? So they can change certain inclusion-exclusion criteria as long as the FDA is okay with them doing that. Those are called adaptive trials, okay? You need an adaptive CV. So you're a study coordinator. If you're applying at another research clinic, you won't change it. Your CV is going to still say study coordinator, and you're going to emphasize the fact that you're a great study coordinator. If you're applying to a CRO to be a CRA, you need to adapt your CV a little. So you're still a coordinator. You still have to say you're a coordinator, but under your job responsibilities, you want to put things that CRAs are doing, like quality assurance, all right? Have you done any QA at your site? From your email, it looks like you have. So you want to put quality assurance. You want to use their language, speak their language. When you talk to somebody and you want to resonate with them, you need to speak the language that they're used to hearing. So they don't want to have to do that interpretation on your behalf. They don't want to look at your CV and say, well, I think he can do this, but I'm not sure. You want to make that clear for them. Speak their language. Hey, I've done internal monitoring at my site. I am like the most experienced coordinator there, and I basically serve as our in-house monitor. If you put that in your CV and you say that in your interview, to them, they don't have to do any guessing or assumptions. No assumptions there. You have been conducting CRA activities at your site, all right? That's what I would do, and that, by the way, applies to anybody who's applying for any kind of job. Back in the day, believe it or not, before I became like business owner of all these research sites and involved in all these other projects, I was applying at different places as a CRA. Thank God I didn't get hired. Nothing wrong with CRAs, but a lot better opportunities being the business owner, right? Now I want to own a CRO and hire CRAs. So thank God I didn't get hired, because I would have gotten really comfortable at that job and probably would not have been this ambitious, and for sure wouldn't have had this channel or all my social networks or all that stuff. I would just be like happy collecting a paycheck. You would have never heard about me unless I came at one of your sites, and then you would have been like, this guy's the coolest CRA in the world, right? When I was applying to jobs, I was applying as a CRA, then I applied as marketing director at several companies. Didn't get hired at any of them. I believe that I am unhireable. My CV was adaptive, right? So when I applied as a CRA, I put things in there like buzzwords. I spoke their language. Hey, I did internal monitoring. I was the on-site monitor at my site. I did QA, all that kind of stuff. When I applied as a marketer, I focused on the patient recruitment activities I was doing, and the marketing, the biz dev I was doing for my site. So speak the language of your audience, reverse engineer it, right? Or if I would have been applying as a driver of a company, I would have focused on the fact that like I drove patients to and from the clinics. By the way, all of this is true. I'm not saying to lie, but I'm saying to highlight the stuff that they care about. Highlight the stuff that would matter to them. Speak their language, right? So don't lie and put things on there that you actually didn't do, because they can call you out on it in the interview and find out that you're full of crap and you don't know what the hell you're talking about, right? So just tweak your resumes based on who's going to be looking at it, right? That's a common theme. You have to be adaptive and flexible and be a counterpuncher, right? Be like Floyd Mayweather. He doesn't punch first. He waits for his opponent to punch, and then he counterpunches. You need to do the same thing. Here's another one. I have an interview for a clinical research finance manager position. I need some interview tips. Can you please help me? So clinical research finance manager. Actually, I think I answered this question, but in case I haven't, and in case you guys didn't watch that video, basically you need to get really good at learning about contracts and budgets. If I were you, I would be tuned into my webinar Tuesday, July 28th about contracts and budgets. You need to be an expert on that stuff. You need to be an expert on cost. You need to be an expert on the Sunshine Act. You need to be an expert on what's fair market value. What are some typical reimbursement rates from Medicare for typical procedures that your company does and that your doctors do, and look at budgets, look at a couple budgets and average out the costs, see if they match, those kind of things. You got some work cut out for you. Definitely stay tuned to my webinar, but I think I answered your question before. Here's another one. Oh, this person's sending me some study leads. By the way, if you're a research site owner and you want to exchange study leads with me, you can do that. Dan@theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Also, if you want to hire me to get studies for you, I will do that through my consulting firm, right? Here's another one. That one I did already. That one I did. This is another one I did earlier this week about informed consent, which was really interesting. So the site, this is a new coordinator. They took over a study. They found out that 2 years ago, several of their patients never signed informed consent. Something's fishy there. One of the audience members actually pointed that out because I answered this question on a video. It smells kind of fishy because you would have to enter date informed consent was signed in the ECRF. And so I'm wondering what they put in the ECRF if there was no informed consent. Yeah, sounds a little fishy. Let's see, let's get to another one. I know I had a bunch that I didn't have time to get to, and they were pretty good. Okay, can you discuss more on adverse events and serious adverse events? What is the CRA's responsibility when such occurs? Who writes the adverse event and serious adverse event? So as a CRA, you have to understand it's not your responsibility to report anything. All you're doing is making sure that the PI and whoever they put on the delegation log, usually it's their coordinators, are reporting adverse events on the source documents. And then they're reporting serious adverse events, meaning adverse events that require hospitalization usually, to the IRB and to the sponsor. So adverse events, they don't need to be reported to the sponsor. They just need to be written down in the adverse event log and then put in the EDC under the adverse event log on there, on the EDC. But serious adverse events, you have to make sure they're submitting them to the IRB. And you have to make sure that the adverse events that they're putting as adverse events are not actually serious adverse events that are not being reported properly. So that's your job as a CRA, to make sure, first of all, that they're being written down, right? And if you go to a site and they're a high enrolling site and there's no adverse events, and it's like a long-term study, that's impossible. And you should probably bring that up to the PI. Someone has had to have a headache or a stomach ache or a cold or a sneeze or a cough. These are adverse events, right? So if you have, like I've heard monitors say that they've gone to sites where they've enrolled 30 patients in a year-long study and nobody had any adverse events, right? Obviously, someone's not reporting the adverse events. Now, most sites you won't have that issue. You'll have adverse events. for every patient. And by the way, for those of you sites out there doing this, you should know that sponsors and CROs keep metrics on all this stuff. So during the study, they keep track of typical adverse events, and if the numbers, if you fall outside of that graph, or if you're out of that standard deviation, they're going to assume that something fishy is going on, like fraud, or if it's not fraud, then you're not following GCP properly. So sponsors keep track of this stuff. If most sites are reporting headaches at a 10% rate of their subjects and you don't, you might be missing some stuff, or you might just be one of those sites that didn't have anybody have a headache. But just be careful. To be on the safe side, just report what's actually going on in the study. Serious adverse events, you need to report it to the IRB. You need to follow up. You need to do a serious adverse event follow-up. So there's an initial submission to the IRB and the sponsor when you first learn about the SAE. And then there's a final SAE submission to the IRB and the sponsor when the SAE is resolved. All right? So make sure they're doing that as well. That is the CRA's responsibility, to make sure that the PI and the site are doing what they need to be doing. Okay? So good question. Here's an interesting one. I have moved to the U.S. and have an interview with a CRO for a project manager position within the next 10 days. Hey, I want you to be my contact, okay? I love project managers. I want to win your business. I have 8 sites right now throughout the country that I own, and I have several dozen that I'm consulting for, and I know a lot of them would be interested in the studies you have, right? So with that out of the way, I'm a business person first. I do want to get your contact info, and I think I obviously have it if you emailed me. So I hope you get hired so that we can do some business, right? So let me answer your question in the meantime. So during the interview, I will be asked to give a 15-minute presentation on the following topics. Throughout your career, you have experienced problem solving in a team environment. From your experience, what are the top 3 things that disrupt effective problem solving, and provide one real-life example of each? So I love these nonsense questions that you will get in these interviews, but hey, welcome to the corporate world, all right? They want to see your reasoning skills. They want to see if you have sound reasoning. They want to look at your critical thinking. They want to look at your problem solving. So here's what you're thinking. So he's telling me what he's thinking of listing as the top 3 obstacles that disrupt effective problem solving in a team. Lack of expertise, lack of resources, lack of team spirit. I like your first 2. Your last one seems a little too like new agey, singing Kumbaya around the fire type of thing, right? If you want to go with that, go with that. Maybe teamwork. But the question's talking about 3 things that disrupt effective problem solving. Yeah, okay, you can say lack of adequate communication, or lack of communication amongst team members. How about that? That sounds better than lack of team spirit. The only team spirit I know are the Clippers dance team. Alright, they're actually called the Clippers Spirit. So, lack of expertise is good. This is a tough one, actually. I probably should have prepared for this one before I turned on the camera. Lack of expertise is one. So, if you have a problem, let's say you're a project manager, right? And you have CRAs that are not able to solve problems. Like, let's say something comes up and you're realizing that everything's coming back to you. You definitely need to retrain the CRAs. So you need to maybe re-educate them on the protocol, maybe re-educate them on the therapeutic indication. And the best way to do this, actually, here's a thing that will set you apart from everyone else that will be interviewed, guaranteed. CROs are hiring people called clinical trial educators now. They work with the sites, and they're usually RNs, registered nurses, that understand, that have a deep knowledge of whatever therapeutic indication that particular study is that they're assigned to. So you might want to bring them into the mix, or if they don't have a clinical trial educator, bring your medical monitor into the mix, have them re-educate all the CRAs, or at least the ones having problems, on not just the protocol, because you can do that as project manager, but on the therapeutic indication. So talk about, hey, these are the adverse events, kind of related back to the previous question about adverse events. These are the adverse events we're noticing because we're doing risk-based monitoring right now, and we can kind of pull this data in real time. Here's the adverse events we're noticing. Here are some sites that are not reporting these adverse events, and who are the CRAs there. So, you'd bring them in and say, hey, look, this is the data we have. The medical monitor is going to explain how the drug may or may not cause those adverse events. And maybe the CRA can actually talk to the PI about this. Maybe the CRA needs to re-educate the PI and the site on the protocol. So that's good. Lack of expertise would be one thing that would disrupt problem solving at the CRO level. Lack of resources, definitely. You're definitely onto something there. Most CRAs are overworked, and most CRAs rarely have time to do 100% source data verification. Even though with risk-based monitoring, they're moving away from that, and more of the responsibility is falling on the research sites for that. And I see a glare from the car behind me. Those of you listening on the podcast are probably thinking, what the hell is this guy talking about? So most CRAs are overworked. We know that. Risk-based monitoring is a way for CROs to move away from having to hire even more CRAs because it's expensive, and putting more of the SDV, source data verification responsibilities, on the site, and more of the quality assurance responsibilities on the site, because, hey, their CROs are for-profit companies, and rather than hire more CRAs, which is obviously a lot costlier, they came up with risk-based monitoring, which sounds really cool because they say they can manage the trials more efficiently that way, which remains to be seen, right? It's way too early in the game for that. This strategy barely came out a few years ago. We're barely starting to see it implemented now. Time will tell if it's a good or bad idea, but your goal here is to get hired as a project manager so we can work together and you can get me studies. Alright, so lack of resources is a big one, but you may not be able to get the resources you need. So what I would do is integrate the resources that you have, make them work synergistically, alright, where 1 + 1 = 3 and not 2. And the way you do that is probably leverage different people's skills, like the medical monitors, the CRAs, clinical trial assistants play a huge role in this. So probably leveraging and having synergy within the team, right? And then that relates to your number 3 things that disrupt effective problem solving at the CRO, which is lack of team spirit, although I would put lack of communication amongst team members. So maybe having monthly meeting or weekly meetings amongst the team members. If you have a particularly large protocol where you have like 100 CRAs, although that's rarely the case, but let's say you have like 30 CRAs, maybe you can group them into regions so they can discuss some of the problems they're noticing at their sites, and so other CRAs, so that their colleagues can be more prepared for what they can expect at their sites. Maybe pay attention to which CRAs have the high enrolling sites, and don't give one CRA all the high enrolling sites. Perfect example, Southern California has a lot of research sites, and usually there's like 1 or 2 CRAs assigned to all the sites, and those sites, especially for psychiatric trials, are usually all the highest enrolling sites in the nation. So you don't want just 1 or 2 CRAs having responsibility for all those sites, and then everyone else kind of having like, low or medium enrolling sites. That's just not fair, and you're getting all the data, really, all the anecdotal evidence, all the experiences from the majority of the study just going in the brains of 1 or 2 CRAs, and they don't even have time to keep up with all their sites, much less have any kind of communication with their colleagues or with their team members. So a better allocation of the resources that you do have, I would go with that. Hopefully you get the job, but let me know what you think. But I think you're on the right track. Just tweak it up a little. Make it less like hippie, alright, and more practical. At least that's how I roll. I mean, if you're a hippie, I don't want to offend you, right? Here's another one. Does a medical assistant need any specific official training other than GCP to become a clinical research coordinator? No. They could use IATA. So if they're going to be drawing blood, chances are you want them, and it's more efficient for you to have them also process the lab samples. So you would want them to get IATA certified, which is shipping biological substances. You would also, so GCP definitely. I would also do NIH, protecting human research subjects, because they're going to be interacting with the study participants, and the NIH has a pretty good course on that, and you get a little certificate at the end, and the best part of all is that it's free. Now, there's no official training other than that needed to become a research coordinator. Now, to be a certified clinical research coordinator, you have to take a series of tests, and I can't remember who, I think it's the Society of Clinical Research Associates that runs this. I know a few of my coordinators, I paid for them to get this certification, and I'm actually going to be doing that in a few months here at one of my other sites, so I'll definitely let you know if I think that's worthwhile. I think it is if you find somebody who seems to be really serious about research as a profession, as a career. And the problem with a lot of these medical assistants is they don't know if they're going to like research or not. So you don't want to waste your time and your money training them, especially your money, training them and then sending them out for certifications, and then having them bail halfway through after you've already spent your money because they decide, oh, research is not for me. You want to find that out before you waste any time, much less any money. One of my sites had 3 medical assistants quit because the medical assistants thought they wanted to do research, and then when they came into a fast-paced environment, they said, hey, see you later, I'm out of here. I do not like research. Peace out. And they just left. So luckily that site didn't spend money getting them certified on any of these things, but definitely time. So make sure that you pick the right one, and before you give them any trainings, especially money, or especially before you pay for their trainings, make sure they're really serious and committed about research. Alright? And we're going on for 33 minutes now. This is crazy. I haven't even got to all the questions yet, but I'm going to go as long as I need to. So here's another one. I watched your Introduction to Clinical Research video, and I'm very interested in becoming a CRA. A lot of you future CRAs are watching. Thank you very much. It means a lot to me. Because of all this demand, this is a perfect segue. Remember, I'm a businessman first, okay? We're launching a CRA training academy sometime. I don't know when, but it's going to be soon. And we're going to take people like you who have the education but just don't have the experience being a CRA. And I'm still working out with the price, but for a reasonable amount of money, much less than any competitor, we're going to train you, and we're going to recommend you to some CROs, right, that we know. And if you don't get a job and you pay for a certain one, so I don't want to give away too much information, but if you pay for a certain one of our courses, we will hire you as an intern at one of our sites until you get hired. And I probably won't need any more interns by that point, so I will be personally motivated to find you a job placement, right? So that's a side note, get that out of the way. So I'm very interested in becoming a CRA. For starters, let me tell you my background. I have a bachelor's degree in microbiology. Okay, so you have the education. I have worked in the biomed industry as an aseptic processor and quality engineer in an immunotherapy manufacturing facility for 3 years. And I currently work as a technical writer in the quality department What do you think I'm missing from my resume as far as experience? I'd like to apply to CRA positions sometime soon. I just want to make sure that I'm not someone that will be overlooked. What other experiences should I be looking for before I start applying? So you may not want to hear this, and there's probably 1,000 ways to do this other than just brute force and hustling your way into one of them. And by hustling, I mean like you're calling 100 headhunters every day. Go on LinkedIn. There's so many headhunters out there, people who get paid to place you somewhere. But like you said, they all CROs want some kind of experience. So I have an infographic on this. It's on Pinterest. It's on my Medium posts where I've been writing. I have a video on this. The easiest way to hack yourself into a CRA job or any job in research with zero experience is to go in your area, go Google research sites in your area. Just go Google where you are right now, put me on pause, and go Google clinical research sites, right? Google's going to know where you're located already. Isn't it nice how they do this stuff for you? And you'll find like 10 or 15 research clinics. Call every single one of them. First, go on their website, see what kind of studies they do. Then call every single one of them and tell them you're a clinical research recruiter. You're willing to work as an independent contractor. Would they be willing to pay you if you bring them subjects that would qualify for the study, right? And what would be fair for you to ask them is $700 for every randomized patient. So if they screen fail, they don't owe you anything. If they randomize, you get $700. What does all this do besides an extra way to earn income for you, which is not what you're looking for? It gets you some experience in clinical research, right? If you can provide a few good subjects to these sites, you can let them know, because you're starting to build some rapport with the study coordinators, with the site director. You're bringing value to them first, right? Rather than calling all of them and saying, hey, I want to intern at your site. Do you need an extra person you want to train? I'll work for free. Very few people are going to want to do that. I mean, we have so many interns here. I don't take on any more interns, but I do take on recruiters. If 1 million of you guys called me and said, hey, I'm working on commission only, I want to recruit patients for you, you're hired, right? You are hired. I'll do that 1 million times. That gets you experience, all right? Then you start building rapport and trust with the key people there at that clinic. And this is all in a matter of months, right? You can do this in a matter of months if you're good at getting those patients. In a matter of months, build some rapport. Then you say, hey, once you start getting to know the people at the site, you tell them, hey, I want to be a CRA. Unfortunately, I don't have enough research experience. Do you think I can be a research coordinator? Or is there any way I can help you in addition to recruiting where I can put this study on my resume, right? If you're providing value, most of them will say yes in a heartbeat, okay? Whoever the decision maker is at the site, you got to let them know that. If they say no, you got to go to the other sites and ask them the same thing. They will say yes. People generally go out of their way to help people who have helped them. It's called reciprocity. It's ingrained in our DNA. So I would do that, and now guess what? In addition to earning some money, you also have experience. 3 to 6 months, you can do all this. And then you can go apply to CROs, and now you can tell them, yeah, I have some experience in clinical research. In fact, most recently, right? So that's what I would do. Here's another one. I understand there are many different types of visits that are performed as a CRA. Can you explain what you do to prepare for such visits? Specifically, how do you prepare for a qualification visit, then a site initiation visit, a regular monitoring visit, and a closeout visit? So, let's go one at a time, right? Site selection visit. What a CRA does at these things is first of all, they have to know the protocol. They have to know the key parts of the protocol that most sites would have difficulties with. So all protocols have at least one element where the majority of sites may have some difficulties, all right? And everyone knows this going in. Like, we have one study that requires a certain type of MRI, and they're very hard to find. They're not a common machine used by most MRI vendors. They're a very specific type of MRI. So the monitors know this going in, and so one of the first things they tell the site, or they ask the site at the SSV, is, hey, this is a key requirement for this study. Are you sure you have the capabilities to do this? The site will then either tell you yes or no. But if you don't ask this, and you complete the site selection visit, and then the site gets accepted, and turns out that when they actually start the study, they don't have a way of getting this MRI, your project manager is going to look at you like, hey, how did you ever accept this site? Or at least talk to us about it first. Maybe we could have helped them find a vendor. And for those of you research sites watching, you should never feel like you need to lie about something, about your capabilities, especially when you know that most sites are going to have issues with that same requirement. Oftentimes I've found that CROs or sponsors will help you find the vendors. I've had a case on an Alzheimer's study where it was for an MRI. The CRO and the sponsor worked really closely with me and my staff on finding a vendor for us that would meet their requirements. And if we would have lied and said, yeah, we can do it, then we would have to go out and do all the work of finding the vendor. So if you're truthful with them, they will oftentimes be able to help you, or at least point you in the right direction for that. All right, so that's the SSV. You also got to make sure they have all the experience, collect everyone's CVs. It's a lot easier, again, if you use a virtual workspace like Intralinks, but a lot of people are not using that yet. But it's coming. It's coming. Then you want to look at if they have adequate space, adequate IP, investigational product room. And then you have to look at whether the monitor is going to have a quiet place that they can conduct their monitoring visits. You don't want to be doing monitoring visits in the waiting room or in the bathroom. So space sometimes is the issue at these sites. That's what I would look at the SSV. Then for a SIV, site initiation visit, you have to make sure all the regulatory documents are back filed. They have, all the coordinators and PIs have access to the various vendors like the ECG, the IVRS, IWRS, if there's any rating scales that everyone's certified to do the rating scales. You may want to send a test ECG out to make sure that that's working properly. Basically, you're just confirming that everything's done so that they can start screening. You make sure that the informed consent is stamped and approved by the IRB. You make sure that they have IRB approval to do the study. That's the SIV. Then traditional monitoring visits. So, like I said before, they're getting away from requiring monitors to do 100% source data verification now. With risk-based monitoring, you have more leeway as to what to focus on, so it's a little more proactive, and you have a better idea of what you're looking at when you go into the site, but you won't know it because every study is different, but your project managers are going to be able to tell you that. And then site closeout visit, you make sure all queries are done, all databases are locked, you make sure all investigational product is sent back, you make sure lab kits are destroyed, you ask them where the study records are going to be kept. Are they going to be kept on-site? Are they going to be kept off-site? Make sure the IRB closeout report is in. Yeah, so hopefully that helps answer your question. Another one, I was reading a CRA for Dummies book. I didn't even know they have those books. I'm kind of jealous that I didn't write it. And came across the term FDF. FDF. I'm guessing this is something indicated in the regulatory package. Can you elaborate? Yes. FDF is financial disclosure form. So everybody who's on the 1572 for that particular study, anyone who's on the 1572 for that study, PIs, sub-Is, sometimes study coordinators, usually not, have to sign a financial disclosure form. Do you have more than $50,000 in equity in the sponsor or in the CRO? But usually they ask in the sponsor. And it's okay if you do. There's some wealthy doctors out there that are well diversified. They may not even know. They may have to ask their financial planners. But if they do own more than $50,000 worth of equity in the sponsoring company, they need to check yes and sign and date it. If they don't, they check no and sign and date it. That's all it is. It's a requirement. The FDA makes sure that there's no manipulation of data going on in order to make the drug look better so that the stock price goes up and the investigator's net worth goes up in the process, right? So that's what that is. Oh, and on a side note, I had someone today tell me, we were talking about a stock, and I told him, yeah, I bought the stock, it's pretty good, I would check it out, it's a biotech. And he said, yeah, I would feel funny about investing in it because I'm a sub-I on one of their studies. And I told him, hey, that's not a problem. You just have to sign the financial disclosure form. And are you thinking of investing more than $50,000? He said no, and I said, you can just check no on the financial disclosure form, right? You're not doing anything wrong there. Okay, another one. I've been reading up on this topic for months, and I'm sure there are some challenges. On most company sites, all I see is smiling faces that I'm sure are staged for the company website. I'm just wondering what type of challenges are faced for the website. I'm just wondering what type of challenges are faced. Like, has a PI or study coordinator ever given you pushback? Have you ever had a problem with a site? I'm sure every monitoring visit cannot go perfectly smooth. So I'm not sure I'm understanding this question. Oh, you're saying that as a monitor, when you go to sites, you just see that everyone's happy. It seems like it's fake. I understand what you're saying. Yeah, there's no doubt about it that when monitors come to the sites put on their Sunday best, right? So some sites go to the extreme of scheduling less patient visits that day, even if it's for a different study than that monitor that's there, just because they're so paranoid. Like, sites look at CRAs as auditors, even though they're really not. CRAs are working with you. They don't want the FDA to ever get involved. I mean, they're scared also of that. So CRAs are not coming to your site to find things, and if they do find things, it's much better that they find something than the FDA finds something, because they can help you clean it up, right? And solve the problem and prevent it from happening again. So I understand what you're saying, especially at site selection visits as a CRA. Of course, put yourself in the site's shoes, right? Especially now when the study supply is so low. Sites are going to do whatever they can to get studies, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. Now, there is a line, and if it's crossed, if you sense that they're just putting on a show and like they staged their clinic, like, one of the surefire ways to tell whether they're an ongoing business or just like they just leased that space the previous weekend and staged it is to go pick up their phone. Just ask if you can make a call or ask if you can send a fax out. And if they don't have that capability, chances are they're brand new, right? That's a quick trick of the trade you learn from me. And you can debate whether there's anything wrong with that or not. Look, I'm a business person. I've actually done similar things to this, believe it or not. Like, I had an office space, and then within that first month, I had a monitor come out for a site selection visit, and they never asked me how long I've been there. I was certainly not going to tell them, so they probably assumed I was there for a lot longer than I really was, and I wasn't about to tell them otherwise because I wanted to get the study. So it's done all the time. The real issue is to make sure that the site is capable of conducting the study, because if they're not and you approve them, it could come back to bite you. The biggest issue is, can they get patients, all right? So I'd be worried less about the staging and more about their recruitment capabilities. All right. Here's another one. I just watched your video called What Needs to Be in a Clinical Research Study Coordinator Performance Review, and was wondering if you have managed to locate the form you were talking about. No, I haven't. Alright, watch that video. This one's going on way too long to get some tips about what should be in there. Last one. Typically when you set up a site and enter an LLC agreement with partners, let's say it's complex and you have several doctors in a large group all wanting some equity, what is the rough legal cost for setting this up? Do you recommend LegalZoom? I do recommend LegalZoom. I have I get no money from them. As a matter of fact, I pay them for my sites. It's like $800, right? And they'll do it for you. If you want to spend a little more, get an actual attorney to set it up. If you have some complex situations going on, or you want to get some particulars in there, LegalZoom won't do that. It's more of a cookie cutter approach, although they have more, I guess, hands-on approaches as well. Alright, so thank you guys for watching. Taking way too long, but I hope you find something in there good for you and something that would provide value. Feel free to reach out to me anytime, Dan at theclinicaltrialsguru.com or 949-415-6256. Take care. Bye-bye.